Welcome to the Dental School Guide podcast, your ultimate destination for all things dentistry. I'm Dr. Tanner Townsend, your guide through the complex world of dental education. Join us as we uncover the secrets of acing dental school admissions, navigating residency programs, and exploring career opportunities. Please share and enjoy. Real quick, just wanted to make all you pre-dental students out there aware of a resource. If you've ever been worried about getting into dental school or are wanting to get into that school of your dreams, then you definitely want to check out a program called Dental School Guide. In the program, we walk you through how to save money, time, and heartache when applying to dental school. There's so much fluff out there when it comes to resources for getting into school, and we are streamlining all of that. With our comprehensive digital course, expert mentorship, and personalized application review services, you'll have everything you need to stand out to admission committees. Take advantage of this amazing resource that will help you increase your chances of getting into dental school. You'll want to check out dentalschoolguide.com. Check it out. Welcome back to the Dental School Guide podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tanner Townsend, and today we have the University of Florida's Dean of Admissions with us, Dr. Sandow. Dr. Sandow, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dr. Townsend. It's really great to be here and spread the word about our great dental school.
Awesome. Well, we are super excited to have you on today, but first, give us a little bit of background about yourself and give us a little bit of insight on how you ended up at the University of Florida.
Okay, great. So I was a kind of a late bloomer, right? So a lot of pre-dental students always ask me about gap years and everything. Do we frown upon it? So we don't. I'll just get that right off the bat because I had 7 gap years after I graduated from my undergraduate until I started dental school. I graduated with a biology degree from Stetson University in Florida and got married after graduation, and my husband moved to Gainesville so that he could go to law school. And I worked here at University of Florida. I got a job at University of Florida, actually, in the very same building that I'm in right now, and that was in 1976. So I have been in this building a long, long time. I was in a Department of Anatomy, and I did research, and also my boss, he taught gross anatomy for dental students and medical students. So that's kind of how I got in touch with dental students. And I was trying to figure out what I was going to do after my husband graduated from law school. And I was an electron microscopist, which takes a lot of hand skills, a lot of hand-eye coordination. And I'd always wanted to be a teacher in high school. And I liked science. I liked working with my hands. And then I realized that dentistry was just a really great fit for what I like to do. And I started shadowing some dentists here at the College of Dentistry and then applied here. This is the only dental school I applied to, was University of Florida, and fortunately got into the dental school. At that time, the first year of dental school was the same as medical school. So we took all the same courses as the students in medical school. So that's how I got interested in dentistry. It wasn't anything that I knew I had wanted to do for years and years and years. At that time, it was difficult for women to get into professions that were usually male dominated. It was a different scenario then. University of Florida was a great fit. I loved it. I'm still here after all these years.
Wow, that is excellent. Wow, I can't believe you've been in the same building since the 70s. That is crazy.
Yes. Yes.
That's really unique and very cool. So you have deep, deep ties to the University of Florida then. So you know the insides and outs of the University of Florida and the dental school there from the sound.
Yes, I do.
So what are some of the unique things that set the University of Florida apart as opposed to other dental schools that you've seen across the country?
Well, there are so many things, and I get that, that's the first question all pre-dental students ask me, what sets us apart? And first of all, we're a research institution. We're as far as the College of Dentistry, we're in the top 6 of, all dental school institutions in the area of research. That may be, some students might think, well, why do I even care about that? Because dentistry is a science, and it is nice to be in a classroom with a teacher and then realize, hey, there's the same name of this professor is on my book, and they wrote the book. And so as a faculty member, you have to do research as part of progressing and getting promotions and everything. So in dentistry, since it's based on a science, you will have to be describing to your patients in the future, not just that you have to do this, because patients are very savvy now with the internet. You're going to have to be able to instruct them why you're doing it, what's the science behind it. And that's why research is important. And we have a lot of opportunities for students in research while they're going to dental school, before and after. We also have our faculty are mostly full-time faculty. So they're not, we have some part-time faculty that might come in and volunteer every once in a while, but most of our faculty are full-time, which makes them very passionate, which makes them also, the students have a lot of continuity of education. The same person's going to be there every day instructing you. There's calibration among the faculty. And our faculty, the association with our students, I think can be best put this way. When I was in dental school, it's more of an authoritative situation. You do what I tell you because I told you to do it. It's not like that anymore. I think our faculty are very open-minded. They are training their future colleagues. That's the way they look at it. Okay. And so they want you to succeed. They want to be able to meet you at meetings in the future and see how you progress. It's more of a relationship. And I think our whole school is very welcoming that way, and our students always feel like they help each other. It's not, University of Florida, I think from the outside maybe has a bad rep about being very very competitive, so that cutthroat with each other in the student situation. But it really isn't in our dental school that way at all. They're very very helpful to each other. So that's another, just the atmosphere. Obviously, I have felt that for 45 years here, and I wouldn't be saying it unless it were true. We have a lot of student organizations. We're very diverse as far as our students, and our students love that because they love learning about different cultures, because they know that their patient population in Florida is a very diverse state, and our school reflects that. And that's important to know about cultures and culture, sensitivity to other people, because you're going to be taking care of them. And that's another great aspect. But, basically, I think our dental school is very well rounded. We are one of the largest providers of Medicaid in the state. We have clinics throughout the state of Florida where our students rotate through in their senior year, so they get to have hands-on experience treating patients in underserved populations. So, we are excellent in research, teaching, and service. So we're very well rounded, and we expect the students that we choose for our dental school to be that way as well.
That is great. You had mentioned there at the end that during your fourth year of dental school, and a lot of different schools do this, they do external rotations or rotations in the community. What do those rotations look like at the University of Florida? Like, how long are the students out in the community during their fourth year versus in school?
Their rotations are about 6 weeks, and the students get to select, they can give their preferences of what part of the state that they are in. The students love the rotations because they get to like be a real dentist in those rotations. They get more patients, they have more autonomy. And so I've never heard a bad word said about them. They're always, well sought after, and it's a requirement, but they still love it. So as far as other externships, we do have a lot of other opportunities for students as far as service while they're in Gainesville through their organizations, and we have a free clinic that they can get involved in. We also have the Acorn Clinic, which is in a city nearby, where students go rotate through and get experience. There's a lot of opportunities in Gainesville as well as in the other clinics associated with University of Florida College of Dentistry in Florida. They're in the South Florida, on the West Coast, East Coast, Ocala, so all over the place.
That's great. In terms of the curriculum, a lot of times these schools, these different dental schools, are trying to really incorporate more digital dentistry into their curriculum. So, how have you guys incorporated digital dentistry with starting with D1s all the way up through D4s?
So we have a lot of electives as well in our curriculum, but we have digital dentistry as far as impression and CEREC machine and those types of things that students can dabble in. As you know, as a dentist in dental school, the concentration is more on the basics. You
Yep.
need to know why you're doing it and get the basics down. And then the digital things are used to be kind of more icing on the cake, but now they're being incorporated in the life of the students. In fact, just recently I've had to get an implant. I'm getting to go through, before I just kind of talked about it because when I went to dental school, digital dentistry wasn't really such a thing,
Uh-huh.
but now I get to go through it myself and actually see the three-dimension, get the impression, the digital impression, the three-dimensional aspects of the image of my mouth on display in a screen. And then they even use artificial intelligence to extract the tooth,
Or like a surgical
digitally.
guide, yeah.
Yeah, so that you can actually see how much bone is left, to see if there's enough room for the implant and all those things. We actually have a center, an implant center where all in a room with all the digital equipment that students are learning about. And like I said, then if you really like an area, you can take electives in that area and even learn more. So
So, what are some of
there's a
those
lot available.
what are some of those electives that you guys offer? That's really cool that you have that.
Well, I mean, I think in every department they have electives. I know when I went to dental school, I took they have a digital photography elective. I think that's real interesting. They have an elective Spanish, teaching Spanish for dentists. I took oral pathology. I loved oral pathology, and so I got to look at slides and make the diagnosis and I was the only one in the elective, so it was really a lot of
One-on-one
one-on-one.
attention, yeah.
Yeah.
That is awesome. So it sounds like you guys do an excellent job of preparing dentists and making sure that they're prepared to go out and either be in private practice or seek a residency program after. And in regards to that, what do you guys do? Different schools, once again, have different ways of preparing students or helping them during that third year as they're kind of preparing, end of the third year, going into the fourth year, preparing to go into private practice or finding a residency. Is there any support things that you guys offer for the students to help get them into dental or into residency programs or find their first job?
Yes, first of all, we do have a course in business for our dental students. A brand new organization that our students developed or formed, I guess that's a better word, is business in dentistry. So they have speakers come from outside, private practice and corporate practices come and speak to the students. We have a method of, since the Gator Nation is real. It's hard to explain what it is, but it's palpable once you're here. You understand, and so since we're the oldest dental school in the state of Florida, there are a lot of Gator dentists in this country, especially in Florida, and it is a network. A lot of them, when they're about ready to retire, they need a new dentist in their practice, they will call our dental school and ask for, us to inform the graduates that there's a position available. So that is one really valuable way that our students find jobs. And I have never heard of one of our graduates having a problem with a job. And believe me, if there was a problem, I would hear about it. There are the one thing that I hear a lot about from our students, how when you're in dental school, it's hard and you tend to, get
Yeah.
gripe a little bit. I don't care what dental school you go to.
Every dental school, every
Okay.
single one.
You're like, especially you get the senioritis and you think, oh my God, get me out of here. And then they go graduate, they might go into a residency program, and we do really well in placement of residents in residency programs. But they go into their residency program and then they finish that and they come back and I see them at, a meeting and they say, I just didn't know the kind of great education I got until I went to this residency program. And then there were other residents who didn't even know how to extract teeth or whatever, because we have a very strong oral surgery program where our students do a lot of oral surgery. And so they're pretty prepared that way. But anyway, that's really the best way to know about how your results are as far as the education is them coming back and telling us that they realize that now. It's so gratifying for us to hear that. So I feel that they're very well prepared. We prepare our students as far as clinical skills. In fact, if I have to say anything, most of our students, if they struggle at all, it's not academically, not that our academics are easy or anything, but our standards are high for admission. It might be that most of the struggles would be in clinical skills while we're teaching them dentistry. And it's the graders are not easy.
Yeah.
We want to graduate dentists whom we would feel comfortable going to ourselves. Okay, so it's very competitive, and once you get here, it's challenging,
And it's supposed
as
to
it
be
should
that
be.
way. Yeah,
Yes,
it's
as it should
totally been
be.
that way.
So my advice to students out there is, if you think it's going to be easy, you're going to have a hard time.
Yep,
If you think it's going to be difficult, it's going to be easier for you in the
exactly.
long
That is some excellent advice. Now, you had mentioned like your students are really prepared, for example, in oral surgery. And that is an awesome opportunity. Not all the schools in the country get that in terms of dental school. What other opportunity, let's say endo, for example, let's just go into endo. Do students get a number of opportunities to do root canals during their third and fourth year and prepare that way?
I don't know the numbers exactly. I know that nationally, endo is, because of implants
It's gone down a little
nowadays.
bit. Yeah.
It's gone down a little bit, but we do have an endo program. We have a residency program, but our students, I don't know how many they do, 5 or 6 endo,
Oh, that's
something like
great.
that. But again, they could come back and assist. Here's the other really positive thing about our school. We have almost all of the clinical residency programs. We don't have anesthesiology, and we don't have oral medicine, but we have everything else. And so if you are if as a student, if you don't feel as though you have enough experience in an area, or you feel like you want to learn more, you just go down to our residency clinic and shadow. If a patient cancels, you can go there and learn more and assist, or talk to the residency program director to see what's involved in getting into a program like that. So that's a real benefit to our students that want to go into residency programs. We also have every year we have a presentation where we help students in the ins and outs of applying through PASS, so that they're familiar with that. Obviously, they get the letters of recommendation and everything from the dental school. Most dental schools do that. But anyway, we're pretty instructive as far as helping them. And I think about 1/3 of our students, maybe a little more, go on to a residency program and actually are successful in doing so.
That is great. Okay. Well, that's kind of the topics that we wanted to hit with in terms of the University of Florida. So let's kind of transition into dental admissions for pre-dental students. And let's talk about some tips and tricks and things that you've seen over the course of your time at University of Florida. But we can
Okay,
start kind of really broad and we'll kind of funnel our way down into the more nitty-gritty stuff. But walk us
sure.
through, what does the admissions process look like from when you guys start receiving applications in June to when you start sending out invites for interviews?
Well, a very good question. First of all, I want to just say that we do have holistic admissions process. Really, no, I don't know that any two of our students are identical or have had the same background. We value a lot of different experiences. The first thing we do is screen the applications, and we had about 1,900 applications this last year. So we screen them. We do give preference to Florida residents. That's not to say we don't have non-residents, but we do give preference to Florida residents. For those of you out there that are non-residents of Florida, the state of Florida, we ask a question about what are your ties to Florida, and we do look at that question because obviously we have about, out of the 1,900 applications, we select about 325 for interview. So since we have, it takes a lot of manpower to interview. We have 3 interviewers for 1 student. So we want to make sure that the students we ask to interview have some sort of real interest in University of Florida and not just putting us down as a space filler. Okay. So we kind of look at that question, and we determine, or we look at who has the most, I'm sorry if that's me dinging there, but
No, that's me. I'm sorry. I
okay.
turn it off, but I can't.
Anyway, we look at academics at that point. Obviously, we don't have any minimal GPA to get an interview. We do have a minimal DAT score, which is 15 in every category, but that's really not for just the interview. That's a matriculation minimum, because we do interview people with less than 15. But if we do, you have to be outstanding in another area. Okay, you can't be below average in all areas. So we kind of, then as I'm going through and screening, I'm looking at all not only the academics, but, leadership and dental experience and volunteerism. And one trick, I don't know if it's a trick, but one thing I want to warn students about is that sometimes we get them into interview, and I'll say, well, why is there you didn't put down any hand skills here on your application? But I read in your personal statement that you like to, do this and all of those hand skills. Well, be thorough in your application. Write it all down. Keep a journal as you're going through all of your activities. I mean, I don't care what you're doing. Write down the hours you do it, who you're doing it with, what you're doing, and then just kind of reflect on what you did and maybe make a paragraph of why do you think, connect it to dentistry. How could what I learned today help me as a dentist? Even if it's a server in a restaurant, there are skills that you learn there that will help you in dentistry. Some people don't even put down that they were a server in a restaurant. Put it down. We as interviewers, we know that, it's difficult to deal with people, and you learn those types of skills of dealing with difficult people and teamwork and all those things. Just look at what you're doing now to prepare for dental school. Look at the broad picture. Don't look at it as checking off the boxes, because if you do, you're not going to do well in the interview. You really need to think about the broad picture for the interview. Not how 100 hours of this or 100 hours of that. That's not what's important, because you could have 1,000 hours of standing in a corner while a dentist does work and call that shadowing and not learn a thing.
Yeah.
Or you can have 100 hours of, speaking to a dentist, asking them why, then go online and look on YouTube instruction about or demonstration about dentistry, and figure out a little bit more in depth what is happening when you're shadowing. What is the dentist actually doing when you're standing there in the corner? And ask good questions of the dentist, because I can say that one of the things as a teacher is that if I have a student that just stands there and doesn't interact with me, doesn't act interested, I don't become an interesting teacher. But once they start getting, enthusiastic and they want to learn, then that's when I perk up and become the best teacher that I can be as well, because I feel like it's not going to be falling on deaf ears. Keep that in mind when you're shadowing too. Dentists want to, obviously you cannot ask questions in front of a patient necessarily, in between patients or whatever. Ask the dentist, why did you do that instead of this? Talk to me a little bit, and then that way you'll get the most out of the experience. Fewer hours might be more impactful than a ton of just, biding time looking at your watch all the time about when can I get out of here.
Yeah. No, that is super, super duper true. I think we often see that with pre-dental students is where they spend so much time trying to rack up these hours, whether it's in volunteering or shadowing or whatever the case may be, and they lose the point. So how
Yeah.
do, on the applications that have really stood out to you over the years that have really done well in those things beyond the stats of the DAT and the GPA, how did they articulate that differently than the standard student in their application?
Okay, well, being thorough on the application, trying to it's and also when you're acquiring these experiences, think about leadership roles, not just a participant, but a leader. That always stands out to me. Or maybe instead of just participating in some things, but maybe developing a community service project yourself. That's important. And always try to kill two birds with one stone. What I mean by that is, you have to volunteer. Now, we don't expect research and volunteerism always to be in the field of dentistry, but if you've got that opportunity, it just makes it easier on a student that has a lot going on as far as academics, and also, use your time effectively. That's important. But as far as it standing out on the application, I'm looking for leadership. I'm looking for, as far as dental experience, I'm looking for a student that has most of their dental experience in a general dental practice, and then supplement your experiences in other specialties. I wouldn't have all your experience in a specialty like oral surgery, because remember, you're going to be a general dentist when you graduate, not an oral surgeon. And so we look at that. We look at quality. We like to see participation in clinical experiences, not just like clinics where you serve patients that are underserved, that don't have a lot of money, not just in high-end practices, because you want to be able to see the difficult choices that some patients must have to go through, whether to save a tooth or go on with extraction and implant or endo or whatever. It gives you a better perspective of what patients have to go through. A lot of times during an interview, something that doesn't kind of turns me off during an interview is when a student doesn't even mention the word patient. So remember to do patient-centered experiences, and think of things through the patient's mind, not just yours. For instance, we asked a person in an interview, what are some of the issues in dentistry? What are some of the difficult things in dentistry? And instead of saying something like, access to care, whatever the issues of dentistry that affect patients, they said something like, yeah, your neck can hurt from, working on a patient. So when that happens, it means that you haven't had the right sort of experiences that are rich, that are not superficial, that makes you really think about the good, bad, and the ugly of dentistry, and why do you still want to pursue it?
Yeah, no, I think that's really important to kind of emphasize that it's not a selfish thing, it's a service thing. And being
Hmm.
focused on the patient and having that be the center of what we do. So I love that. Now, as we kind of move into more of the interview itself topics, you had mentioned there are three interviewers that you guys typically have at the University of Florida. Is
Yes.
it a one-on-one interview? Is it an online interview? I know a lot of schools have kind of moved to that just with COVID.
Yeah.
Have you guys
We
done that?
did. Yeah, we did Zoom interviews for 3 years during COVID, and we are back to in person, and we love it. There are three interviewers to one student. We have three interviewers because we had two, and there was a difference of opinion. it's just better to have three. And then also our admissions committee, we have like 34 people on our admissions committee. They're either elected or appointed by the dean. We have 9 students on our admissions committee. We have researchers, we have alumni that are in private practice, and then of course we have faculty. So it's very diverse group, and we we like the 3 interviewers because we get different perspectives. We don't want everybody to think the same as a dental student. We don't want to think the same as an interviewer either, because we do discuss what happens, with the interview, and there are things that one person might see and another one doesn't, or maybe somebody thinks of one thing negatively while the other one will say, well, that might be a cultural thing, or I saw it differently. And so that discussion, I think, is helpful, and I don't think you could get that so much if it was a one-on-one. At least that's our philosophy.
No, I agree. Now, in terms of your guys' interview style, some schools do closed file kind of things where the interviewers don't know a whole lot of
Hmm.
background to try to
Hmm.
be unbiased. Other
Hmm.
schools do open file. What do you guys have? What have you
Good,
found at
good
University of Florida that
question.
works best for you?
Yeah, what works best for us is an open file. Now, there have been some, concerns about maybe being prejudiced about certain things with an open file. We find that, first of all, we calibrate our interviewers, and we do have a interview rubric that we go through that is not academics, because the grades are separate. So the interview is the interview, and we use the open file so that we can formulate questions to really get to know that person. Now, I have heard a million times that University of Florida's interview is very difficult, and I've tried to assess why I think it is for some people. Some people love it, some people don't love it. I think the people that don't love it maybe aren't prepared. We don't we have a fun day around the interview. I mean, we do a lot of you meet with the students, faculty. We have a nice lunch. We have some we call it the orange and blue room, where you get to know your fellow applicants. We have certain hand skill games in there and all that kind of stuff. But the interview, I'm not going to say it's extremely serious, but it's not a recruiting event. I've heard that some dental schools use the interview as a recruiting event, like you should come here because of this, this, this. We expect you to already know why you want to come here, because you applied here, right? So they would know what we have to offer them. Obviously, we do have a discussion about that, a little lecture about what we offer them, but the interview is to see if you're a good fit for us. And we ask questions about, we follow up on what they have written on their application. So if you write down you've done something, we'll ask about it. That's all that it's about. So if you maybe aren't real truthful about what you wrote down, that's where you're going to get caught.
Yep.
And it's not that we're trying to catch you. It just comes out sometimes when we really want to know more about this particular thing that you wrote down. So lesson number 1, if you go to University of Florida College of Dentistry's interview, is that if you wrote it down, you
It's fair
you
game.
know back it up, know what it is. And a lot of our questions are not, they're not pat, they're just responsive to what a person says. So if they say, I love to help people, we will ask, well, tell us some examples of how you've helped people. I mean, so it's all related to what they've said and what they've written down.
I love that. Well, let's kind of move into a hypothetical situation with an applicant. And let's
Hmm.
say we're going to kind of do two sides of the coin here, because I think there are certain students that are strong in the statistics but kind of weak on more of a holistic approach, and then vice versa. So let's take the obvious one first. Let's say a student maybe doesn't have the strongest GPA or strongest DAT score. How would you recommend that student prepare for a future cycle to correct that, whether it be a master's, post-bac, or something else?
Yeah, first of all, I have to, we look at the DAT also. It's kind of like that great equalizer as far as what a student has learned in their undergraduate about science. So if you have a low GPA and you have a low DAT, it probably means you need to have more science courses, is what I would think. Okay. And I think we've had lots of students become successful after a master's program. In fact, if you were to interview our current students, a fair number of them would have gone through the master's program, applied, didn't get in, and went through a master's program and did. And that's because, so if you do go through a master's program, though, if you make the same GPA, low GPA in the master's program, that's not going to get you anywhere. We really expect you to knock it out of the park, okay? And then typically, people do much better on the DAT if they retake the DAT after a master's program. I get asked quite often, what do I look at? What do we think about people retaking the DAT? Well, if you haven't met our average or in the ballpark of our average and you have opportunity to retake a DAT, we'll be wondering why you didn't try to retake the DAT. I mean, it's not a bad thing unless you take 5 times and you still have a low DAT. Then, at some point in time, I would have hoped that maybe you just need to beef up the science foundation. And so obviously more courses would help with that. Now we prefer students, instead of post-bac, we prefer them to actually get a master's degree. Why is that? Because, it's something, so what if dentistry doesn't work out? Now you've got a master's degree instead of a bunch of science courses. And plus it's more regimented. I think it's more like a simulation of what dental school would be like.
I would agree with that.
Which would help you in dental school.
Now let's flip that coin a little bit. Let's say the student has relatively strong DAT and GPA scores, but the rest of the application's a little bit weaker. Now, they might not have time to up everything in terms of volunteering, shadowing, leadership. Where should they focus their time and efforts?
So at what point in time are we talking about
let's say that's an excellent clarifying question. I'm glad you asked. So let's say that the student, let's say they didn't get in, and it's let's say it's January or February before the next cycle opens in May and June. And they're like, shoot, I've got to get something better on my application before I reapply again. What would you tell that student of how they did?
Okay, so one thing I just want to add while I'm thinking about it is that we look at work, experience, and we realize some people don't have the luxury of having a lot of time because they're working 40 hours a week. So we do take that into account. Now, those students who have zero research, zero work, very low everything else, but really high academics, we know where they put all their eggs in that basket. I ask me, well, what area? And I'm like, well, if you have to work, try to get a job as a dental assistant. Beef up, that way you can earn money to save for dental school and get dental experience, if that's possible. Sometimes the person you shadowed for, you can start asking, if you're real interested, they might be interested in you, and you can ask, okay, can you give me more responsibilities? And maybe start off that way as a volunteerism, but then perhaps somebody goes out, on leave of absence or something, and then maybe you could fill in and learn some skills that way. But I think dental experience is extremely important. So if you are in a dental, so this is where I'm talking about killing 2 birds with 1 stone. If you're in a dental office working, perhaps you could get with that dentist to go go out to the elementary schools for a volunteer, or go downtown to the areas of homeless areas and bring oral hygiene supplies for volunteering, and kind of piggyback off of as many experiences as you can. I mean, I just think that's being smart with limited time. If you fragment too many of your experiences, sometimes they're just not meaningful. You really need to develop in areas, not only because you get more out of it, because you develop passion, but also because somebody could write a great letter of recommendation for you, possibly, that is associated with those volunteer experiences. Again, they really have to develop all those areas, and that's part of that holistic thing. I don't want to just guide them to one area or another, but dental experience is is extremely important. I see applications where they have DATs at 25 and 4.0 and 20 hours of dental experience, and they don't get an interview. They need to develop it, and they should know that, but they're probably just testing the waters or something to see if they get in, but based on that.
Yeah, and that's kind of sad that that happens sometimes, is realizing there's more to the picture than just the academics. It's the whole person that is critical to develop. So along the same vein, let's say someone was waitlisted, and there are a lot of students out there that are like, oh my goodness, I'm just praying that this school just lets me in. I'm on this wait list, or I'm on a couple wait lists. What advice would you give to those students in terms of how they should be approaching the wait list?
Okay, so our wait list changes constantly, as far as where you are on the wait list. So we, as an institution, I know some dental schools do this, but we don't tell anybody where they are on the wait list because, number one, we don't know who's going to drop out of that wait list as they get offers. We don't know, the student gets more consideration once they've graduated, once they finish the prereqs. So as all those information's coming in, they might retake the DAT or something. And when that's all figured in, that's going to change where the location on the wait list. So we don't want to tell them you're number one on the wait list, and then somebody turns in some stuff and they get higher than them. So we don't give any information about where a person is on that wait list. That causes a lot of angst, obviously, and I appreciate that, and I'm sorry about that. But really, we could fill anybody on that wait list until the day one of class. Hopefully everybody.
I mean, does it happen like every single year? I'm sure it.
No.
Year to
It
year.
doesn't. It's not. Let's see. One year I had somebody still up in the air about 1 week before dental school, and then one year about 6 weeks into dental school, somebody dropped out, and we picked somebody from the wait list, although they had reapplied and everything. Anyway, so it doesn't happen very often, but it could happen. I mean, we don't want to say there's no chance of you getting in. There is a possibility. So we leave the wait list. It's organic type of situation, and you won't know where you are, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that's very appropriate. I think it's totally appropriate. Now, I think we see a lot of angst in those students that are on that wait list, and they're like, do I contact the school? Do I send a letter of intent? Do I do all this extra stuff to try to push the school over the top? How is that viewed from your perspective via the letter of intent and the contact during that period?
So I wouldn't, like I said, I think we send out an email, don't contact us, we'll contact you type of thing. So, if you contacted us once and we say, oh, I'm sorry, I know you feel that way, and that's fine. But if you contact us every week, it does become a little bit annoying. And we wonder what kind of student that would be. So I wouldn't say it's a positive thing. I would never take somebody off of it for doing that. But it's not very professional when you've been told one thing. As far as letters of intent, if they're from the heart, sure. But some of them we get, and you can see that, it's a different font, Dear University of Florida, and they're sending it to everybody. Yeah. Those, they just changed the university. That's not... that doesn't do anything, but some people will say, my family's going to move to Florida, and I am still interested, or some valid reason that that you're telling us that you're still interested, and it's from the heart. Sure, those things we can kind of pick out, and we value those.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as we're wrapping up, Dr. Sandow, any final words of advice that you would have for students that are looking to come to the University of Florida, or just applying to dental school in general?
Okay, I think I'll just go back to the fact that I would like students to really get a broad picture of why they're doing this, and really think about what that profession is, and that you will be doing it for decades after, and why it is a good fit for you. And so what I'm thinking about now are those things that aren't on your application that come out in the interview. What makes a person stand out in the interview is the ones that have connected the dots of all the things they've done. And they have read a lot about dentistry, and they go to different websites like the American Dental Education Association website and learn about dentistry through that organization. I think they have some great things on their website. Connect with your pre-dental society, because I had a niece that went to our dental school before that. She says, I don't like going to the pre-dental society because, I don't like the program. I said, it's not about all that. It's about connecting with fellow students like you. Somebody might say, I'm doing this, and you think, oh, that's a great idea. Maybe I should do that too. Or, it's connecting with like-minded people. You'll learn a lot that way. And so just think of things in a more broader perspective. That's what I would say. And that's what makes a special person. Somebody really connects with people and patients, because dentists, that's one thing they have to do, is be able to connect with people. That's what we want to see too, evidence of.
Well, that is great. Well, that is it for today's episode of the Dental School Guide podcast. Dr. Sandow, thank you once again for coming on the show.
You're welcome, and I thank you for having me, and good luck to everybody out there that's trying to be a dentist. Don't give up. Sometimes it doesn't happen the first time, but don't give up. We look for that grit, and when you reapply and you've done what you're supposed to do, that's grit, and we appreciate that. So keep the faith.
Awesome. Well, thank you once again, and we will see you all next time.
That's all for today's episode of the Dental School Guide podcast. We hope you've gained valuable insights and inspiration to fuel your journey into dentistry. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast for more expert advice, inside tips, and engaging discussions. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a review. It would mean the world to us. Until next time, keep smiling, keep striving, and remember, your dental dreams are closer than you think. Thanks for tuning in to the Dental School Guide podcast.